Good morning. My name is Tiana Hale, and I am the Manager of Engagement and Partnerships for Frederick County Public Schools. I would like to welcome everyone today to our annual Central Office Veterans Day program. Would the whole audience please rise for the national anthem and remain standing through the Pledge of Allegiance? The national anthem will be performed today by the Oakdale High School Mixed Choir, directed by Jacqueline Grimm.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, we would like to introduce our special guests for today's program. We are excited to have with us a number of student performers, including the Oakdale High School Mixed Choir. Trumpeters Patrick Ford and Alex Powers of Oakdale High School, and students from our Academy for the Fine Arts. We also have with us our nominees for the Veteran and Education Service Award and their special guests. Colonel John Furr, United States Air Force, retired, as well as Colonel Fred Schumacher, United States Army, retired, representing Frederick County Veterans Advisory Council. Mr. Stephen Hine, President and CEO of Woodsboro Bank. Mr. Chris Clemens, Senior Vice President of Commercial Banking, Woodsboro Bank. Quilts of Valor Representative, Ms. Sue Motes, and our school board members, Sue Johnson, Board President, Dean Rose, Vice President, board members Nancy Allen, Ray Gallagher, Karen Yoho, and David Bass, and FCPS Superintendent Dr. Cheryl L. Dyson and FCPS Deputy Superintendent Dr. Mike Marco. Thank you to our special guests for being with us today, and thank all of you and our central office staff for attending today's program. Though Veterans Day was originally commemorated as Armistice Day and intended to honor those who fought in World War I, at the urging of veterans, Congress changed the name of the holiday in 1954 from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. Today, the United States is home to approximately 19 million living veterans, comprising less than 10% of our population. Dr. Dyson and the board recognized Veterans Day at Wednesday's meeting, and today we gather as a community to honor all who put on a uniform in service to our nation. At this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Susan Johnson, President of the Frederick County Board of Education. President Johnson will provide comments on behalf of the board, then Dr. Dyson will deliver the superintendent's remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. On this program, it says, we're dedicating this to the service and sacrifice of our veterans. And I think that those two words we say a lot, but if you think about the meaning and the impacts behind them, the service and the sacrifice. You serve, you give everything, you're willing to die for your country. And the sacrifices that you make and have made for the betterment of our society and our citizens and the people that live here. They're words, but I think until you live them, they don't come to life. So I'm looking at the words here, service and sacrifice. I know on our board, we have numerous members that have family members that have military, distinguished military service. I know Mr. J has come from a military family. I know Mr. Rose has an extensive array of relatives that have served in the military. Miss Yoho, Miss Allen is, I believe she had talked about that as well. And then I had mentioned Wednesday night, I had the opportunity, as I'm preparing for my mother's memorial service tomorrow, I've had the opportunity to go through old family photos, and I've seen pictures of my Uncle Chuck, who was on the D-Day landings, and my Uncle Bill, who served on the USS Shangri-La in the Far East, and my Uncle Frank, who was a Korean War veteran. And I think what touches me personally right now is, anyone who knows me knows that I'm a big fan of baseball, and I have a player right now whose father works at Fort Detrick, who's been deployed, and he normally catches for him. He's a pitcher. And so we got the call of, hey, I won't say the name, but the family, father's been deployed. Is there anyone who can help catch? And it just broke my heart realizing the sacrifice that this man is making for our country to leave his son, who's a developing pitcher, and needing help. And of course, everybody jumped in to do that. But when we talk about sacrifice, it's just like you give everything and you leave it. So on behalf of the Board of Education, I want to just make sure you know that we on the board don't just see that service and sacrifice as words, that we offer a profound thanks and gratitude to our veterans here that continue to serve, and now in the capacity of FCPS. We're fortunate to have you. And as I said, they're words on paper, but they're really resonating with me right now, service and sacrifice. And for that, on behalf of the board, I wish to thank you.
Good morning. It is my sincere pleasure to be with you today and participate in honoring our nation and our school systems veterans. As we gather to reflect upon the significance of Veterans Day, I'm reminded of a powerful quote by President John F. Kennedy, who once said, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." President Kennedy's words remind us that true appreciation goes beyond mere words. It requires us to live by the principles and values that our veterans fought to protect. Their sacrifices were not in vain, for they secured our liberty and the very ideals that make our nation great. Let us also remember that Veterans Day is not just a day for the past, but a day to look toward the future. It's an opportunity for us to support and empower our veterans as they transition to civilian life. It is our duty to ensure they receive the care, the recognition, and the opportunities they so deserve. Thank you to our special guest. So as we express, I was getting ready to read Ms. Hale's words. So as we express our gratitude on this Veterans Day, let us also remember the highest form of appreciation is to carry forward the values of honor, duty, and sacrifice that our veterans exemplify. That's what you do every day. Let us live by their example and continue to build a nation they can be proud of. Thank you so much for your service and for being here today.
Thank you, President Johnson and Dr. Dyson. Frederick County Public Schools is dedicated to strengthening our community by providing a high-quality education for every student, every day. Integral to this mission is the nurturing of relationships and families in the entire community, sharing responsibility for student successes, and demonstrating pride in all aspects of our school system. We have made it a priority to encourage and sustain collaborations across our community to support the success of our students. These collaborations have helped make this program possible. Today, we have Colonel Fred Schumacher, U.S. Army retired and former chair of the Frederick County Veterans Advisory Council, also known as the VAC. The County Council created the VAC in 2018 to advise the county executive on issues of importance to veterans and their families. The VAC also serves as a conduit for information and resources for the county's 1,800 veterans and their families who may need assistance furthering their education, finding employment, receiving counseling, or other services. At this time, I invite Colonel Schumacher to say a few words on behalf of the VAC and our community's veterans. After which, students from our Academy for Fine Arts will perform Stars and Stripes Forever by John Philip Sosa, arranged by Brunswick High School senior Reagan Ryder.
Thank you very much for the introduction. First, I want to say thanks to the chorus and the musicians for sharing your musical talent with us today. But before I go further, I want to recognize Earl because the Marine Corps is celebrating its 248th birthday today. Semper Fi, Earl. Now, as was mentioned, 5 years ago, the Veterans Advisory Council was created to support and to be a voice for the 17,000 veterans that are in Frederick County. I'd like to take just a few moments to talk about those educational opportunities that are available through the 3 institutions that are in Frederick County, and then talk about what the Veterans Advisory Council would like to thank you for. FCC, Frederick Community College, has a veterans organization that is the hallmark not only for the 2-year institutions, but for 4-year schools. That their veterans organization provides not only educational opportunities and educational advice, but also any support that the veteran needs, whether it's housing, clothing, transportation, or whatever. Hood College, just down the street here, is a yellow ribbon school. That means that if a veteran applies and is accepted at Hood College and does not have the financial wherewithal to pay the tuition, the college will make up that difference. Mount St. Mary's is home to a very unique program hosted by the Department of Defense, by the Department of Defense Acquisition Corps. They train individuals in a 2-year program to become contract officers throughout the federal government. That's an example of the activities that are available in the educational institutions. We've talked about the thanks to the veterans, but we also need to thank the Frederick community. You have made it possible for the veterans to have a tremendous amount of resources, whether it's food, shelter, clothing, employment. If a veteran comes up and says, I want to learn how to fly fish, we've got an organization in Frederick County. If a veteran says, I want to go elk hunting in Wyoming, we have also another organization. And that's one of the challenges that we have in the Veterans Advisory Council and also the Veterans Service Center is to make all these resources available and known to the veteran. So thanks again for allowing me to speak. It's a great honor to be here. And to our award nominees, congratulations for your service, not only to the country, but also to the Frederick County Public Schools. Thank you.
And now we have the Academy of Fine Arts performance. What a wonderful and lively performance. Thank you so much. Those were our fantastic students from the Fine Arts Academy. Now, I would like to bring forth and invite Deputy Superintendent Dr. Mike Marco to the podium to introduce our system salute to veterans.
Good morning. And thank you for being with us today. Veterans Day is a day of both celebration and reverence, a day when we pause to express our profound gratitude to the service members who selflessly served our nation in times of peace, in times of conflict, and to acknowledge the ongoing commitment and resilience of those who continue to serve. Each veteran has a unique story, a journey of dedication and service that has left an enduring mark on our nation's history. Across time, every generation of veterans have faced a vast number of ever-changing challenges, and yet they persevered. And although challenges may vary, it is their common experience and service of our nation that ties their stories together, inspiring and reminding us of the importance of service to a greater cause. It is my sincere pleasure to be with you today as we gather to pay our heartfelt thank you to all of our nation's veterans, with a special focus on those who are an integral part of our Frederick County Public Schools family. Those who have chosen to continue their stories of service within our Frederick County Public Schools community. We will begin the recognition portion of the program by honoring all the veterans who are with us today. I kindly request all the veterans in our audience, please rise and allow us to acknowledge your dedicated service. Next, please join me in honoring our system veterans highlighted in our annual Veterans Day video created by our wonderful public affairs team. In 2017, Frederick County Public Schools launched the Veteran and Education Service Award. The purpose of this annual system recognition is to honor an FCPS employee who served our nation in the armed forces and has continued their call to service through the work in Frederick County Public Schools. Each fall, nominations for the award are accepted from staff, students, parents, and other community members. And all nominees are honored as part of our annual FCPS Veterans Day program. As Tiana previously stated, FCPS is fortunate to have many community partners who support our system's mission and goals. The Veteran Education Service Award is made possible through the generosity of our sponsor, Woodsboro Bank, Mr. Stephen Hine, President and CEO of Woodsboro Bank, and Mr. Chris Clemens, Senior Vice President of Commercial Banking, are with us today to help recognize these deserving nominees. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Hine and Mr. Clemens to say a few words on behalf of Woodsboro Bank.
Good morning. How are we doing? We wouldn't be here without our veterans. It's plain and simple. Chris and I and my colleagues at Woodsboro Bank have been honored to partner with FCPS since 2017. I can just tell you that as a son and grandson of a veteran and the father of an active military Marine, I'm humbled when I talk to veterans. Humbled. Chris is a great student of history. And probably, I don't know anyone who knows World War II and World War I history better than Chris. Certainly enough to the point where my daughter, who's a teacher at Oakdale High School, invited him in to teach a class in the world history last year. I think she would have had him for a semester teaching it if I would have allowed him to it, but he's got too many things to do at the bank. But I just, on behalf of my colleagues at Woodsboro Bank, Chris and I want to just recognize all veterans, but certainly you who are being recognized here today. And again, we would not be here without you. And in a world that there's an awful lot of challenging things going on, what you've done inspired my son to join the Marines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hine and Mr. Clemens and the Woodsboro Bank for your continued support and commitment of our Veterans Day program. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. Colleen Bernard and her team for putting together such a wonderful event every year on behalf of our school system. I have never worked in a school system who care so deeply about their veterans and taking the time to honor them. So as we honor you today, I feel so humbled and privileged to be a part of this school system. Thank you so much. It is now my pleasure to recognize some outstanding FCPS employees, the nominees for our Veterans and Education Service Award. Would each nominee please come forward and be recognized when your name is read? We ask for the audience to hold applause until all nominees' names have been read. Earl Gibson, HVAC Tech, Maintenance Department, Urbana Area, United States Marine Corps. Emma Jackson, Custodian, Yellow Springs Elementary, United States Army. Matiaki Nico, Volleyball Coach, Walkersville High School, United States Army. Michael Simpson, Transportation, Middletown Area, United States Army and United States Army Reserve. Amanda Sinclair, Teacher, Yellow Springs Elementary, United States Army and United States Army National Guard. Please join me in thanking all of our nominees for their continued service to our community. We salute you.
At the conclusion of our ceremony today, we will take pictures of our nominees and their special guests in the studio. In the coming days, our selection committee will complete the arduous task of identifying this year's award recipient. We hope that everyone will join us at the November 21st Board of Education meeting, where we will officially recognize this year's Veteran in Education Service Award recipient and recognize all of our system veterans for their service. Today, we are very honored to have with us Colonel John Furr, U.S. Air Force retired. To introduce Colonel Furr is his son, Paul, who is the principal of Middletown Middle School.
Good morning. My father was born in San Pedro, California, the son of Italian and Croatian parents. He attended both Catholic and public schools, graduating from San Pedro High School. He attended the University of Southern California for 3 years and then the United States Air Force Academy. Upon graduation from the Academy in 1962, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. My father moved on to pilot training and flew B-47 jet bombers in the Strategic Air Command, standing nuclear alert both in the United States and overseas. As the Vietnam War expanded, he transitioned to the EB-66C and was deployed to Thailand to fly electronic surveillance and countermeasures over North Vietnam. It was on his 54th mission over the North on February 4th, 1967, while flying in a highly defended area near Hanoi, that he was shot down by surface-to-air missiles and became prisoner of war of the North Vietnamese communists for more than 6 years. As a POW, he lived in the same rooms and camps with many brave and talented POWs such as Senator John McCain, Senator Jeremiah Denton, Texas Congressman Sam Johnson, as well as Medal of Honor recipients Bud Day and Leo Thorsness, learning firsthand what leadership under adverse conditions required of an individual. He served on the commander's clandestine communications team, whose task it was to transmit the directives and instructions for resistance from the senior ranking officer to all POWs, often at great risk of torture or other punishments. At the same time, he also served as one of the room chaplains to conduct Sunday services for other POWs. My father was released on March 4th, 1973, and returned home. After recuperating, he attended Command and Staff College, following which he resumed his flying career in the F-111, a fighter airplane. Later, he served in many staff positions, most notably as the principal advisor to the Secretary of Defense for POW and MIA relations in the Pentagon, and as the chief of the European Field Office to oversee the implementation of the INF Treaty signed by President Ronald Reagan and Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, to a treaty to eliminate intermediate-range and short-range missiles in Europe. After 28 years, my father completed military service, but he did not retire to take up recreational sports. That I can attest to you. Instead, he continued to give to his country by teaching history and government, followed by a 14-year career as a Catholic elementary school principal in California and South Carolina. My father holds 2 master's degrees, one in political science from Auburn University and the other in educational administration from the University of South Carolina. He and my mom have 3 children, my brother, a foreign service officer, John, with the Department of State, myself, middle school principal in Middletown, Maryland, and my sister, an early childhood school teacher. My mother and father still currently reside in Frederick, Maryland. Before we move on to the conclusion of today's program, we are going to pause for a special presentation. My father has been part of the Veterans Day, FCPS Veterans Day activities for over a decade. speaking to classes and leading the POW MIA ceremony at many Veterans Day programs. His service to our nation and our community is unwavering, and today we have with us Ms. Sue Motes and Ms. Marianne Elliott, representatives from the Quilts of Valor organization, who have a few remarks and a special presentation.
Short and shrinking. Can you hear me? I'll use my teachers. I used to be a teacher also in Montgomery County Schools, so it's nice to be with you here today and to honor your veterans, and especially Colonel Furr. I'd like to say I also have trouble with this. I grew up during World War II and then the following conflicts, so I have those memories. My husband served in the Air Force in peacetime, and when he retired, he worked for Uncle Sam in the Department of Defense. So I have some connections that way. So what is Quilts of Valor? Well, there are a few flyers on the back table, and I have one here. It is an organization that was started in 2003 by a lady named Catherine Roberts, who lives in Delaware. And her son was deployed, and she kept having these dreams about perhaps him sitting on his cot and looking very unhappy, distressed. And in one of the dreams, she finally saw him with a quilt wrapped around him, and it was kind of an aha moment. And she started this organization called Quilts of Valor Foundation.org. And we've been doing it since. And I became involved very early. What is a Quilt of Valor? Well, it is a special quilt that's made by maybe an individual. It could be made by our group down in Capitol Quilts, Gaithersburg. And then it's the layers are put together by a long-arm quilter, which I do. Do I look like a long-arm quilter? No. But we have these great big machines that, would fill up this whole area up here, and we do the stitching and put it together. Someone else will bind it. We put special labels on them, and they are meant as an honor. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And for those of you who are veterans, you may request one for yourself. You may nominate someone and just go to the website and do that. So we're going to display the Quilt of Valor. As of this date, 31st of October, 362,564 Quilts of Valor have been reported. It's upside down. So, all right. So if, what? Okay. I'm going to talk in my loud teacher voice. We'd like for Colonel Furr to join us, please. The Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider a privilege to honor you. Though we may never know the extent of your sacrifice and service to protect and defend the United States of America, as an expression of our gratitude, we award you this Quilt of Valor.
The highest ranking roving I have ever been.
I'm the one that made it.
She's gonna, she, Mary Jo, made it,
Okay, Mary Jo, thank you.
You're welcome.
and she has something else to award to you.
We have a Vietnam War commemorative pin to give you that has symbolism in it, including an eagle, which represents courage, honor, and dedicated service to our nation, a blue circle
The color blue matches the canton of the American flag and signifies vigilance, perseverance, and justice. A laurel wreath, which is a time-honored symbol representing victory, integrity, and strength. The stripes behind the eagle represent the American flag. The stars represent the 6 allies who served, sacrificed, and fought alongside one another: Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, the Republic of Korea, Thailand, and the United States. And the message on the pin says, "A grateful nation thanks and honors you," is embossed on the back, closest to the heart of the wearer. The official name of the commemoration is included to remind each veteran that this is a national initiative. Thank you so much.
We're giving him some quilt care. This is to be used. It is not to go in the, don't let him put it in the closet. Don't keep it in a plastic bag.
And don't use bleach, right?
Yeah. And there's the pen. And thank you so much.
My pleasure. Good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure, always a great pleasure to be here. And I'm flattered in a sense that I don't wear out my welcome. I'm invited back every year. So it's always wonderful to be associated with education, still, continuously, and the military, continuously, too. Hoorah! I got that from my son-in-law on a text yesterday when I said, congratulations. He's a former Marine. Congratulations, married our daughter. He is a former Marine, and I said, congratulations on your 248th anniversary. Now, usually he says I can't be reached in his text message because I'm at a Marine party celebrating the 248th. But he didn't go this year. They couldn't find enough Marines where he lives to go and hold a big dinner. But he did in Korea when he was stationed there. This program, besides the dedication of all of you here and our dedicated service members too, it gets more and more meaningful to me every year because I think maybe because I'm getting older and older and older, and I realize that people who have their hearts and minds and feelings in the places that I like to see them never forget. They never forget, and they continually offer their congratulations and appreciations and sacrifice. I always like service and sacrifice together because it reminds me that you don't have to get shot at in order to make a sacrifice and stay alive. You don't have to. In other words, Churchill one time said, nothing is more gratifying than to be shot at without effect. And I'm happy to hear that you're all here to help celebrate your selections today. If you look at the, and I'm digressing a little bit, or I just love, in fact, let me mention Paul, that I think he went into education because when I was his principal and he was in elementary school, I got so upset with him and the Blackwood boy, I can't remember, Billy Blackwood, getting in a fight on the playground and being sent to my office covered in dust and dirt and just absolutely disheveled in his uniform. It was a Catholic elementary school. I said, Paul, if you get in trouble again, I'm going to throw you out of this school. And I looked at Billy and I told him the same thing. And I think that maybe sent a message to Paul, and he says, I'm going to prove myself and I'm going into education and I'm going to be a good principal as well. So anyway, I hope he's turned out to be a good one for his supervisors. Dr. Barco, it's good to see you again. And Dr. Dyson. If you look at, and I'll get back on track here in just a minute here with our dedication, but if you look at the branches that our military people serve in, you recognize something that's very significant, very significant. You recognize that Earl Gibson served in Maintenance Area 7, okay? Military doesn't work well unless the machinery works well. You got to grease the skids in order to make it slide right. The ball bearings have to be taken care of, so to speak. Custodian reminds me of security. The equipment doesn't get to where it's supposed to go unless you have a custodian to take care of everything that goes with it and supports it. And Mr. Nico, I don't know how you pronounce your first name, but you got to be physically fit, don't you? You got to be physically fit, and we got a volleyball coach with us today. And it takes a lot, especially the girls' teams. Have you ever watched a girls' volleyball team? It really takes conditioning and expertise and coordination. It does. The other is transportation. It used to be that when I grew up, the old saw was the Army travels on its stomach. Means you better provide the right nourishment, the right food, keep them healthy, and you'll get the job done. So you need transportation. You need transportation to get all those things to the soldiers, sailors, and the Marines and the airmen that are required. And of course, it all starts in the classroom. It all starts. Even in the military, you don't immediately go to a unit and say, okay, I'm here. You salute smartly and say, send me to the front lines. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You've got to be educated. You've got to have your, I guess the Army still calls it MOS, whatever it is, okay. You got to be an expert. You got to know your job and all that sort of thing. So I think the cross-section of people that are represented here say a lot for our military as a cohesive organization. To get with the special recognition here of the missing warrior, that those who have served and those currently serving in the armed forces of the United States are ever mindful of the sweetness and enduring peace that has always been tainted by the bitterness of personal sacrifice. Let me parenthetically say here that families are also directly involved in this. The sacrifice that families are called to give to the service member, who may or may not be in that particular family, are remarkable. They're remarkable. And they suffer as much as the person who is deployed on a combat tour. So families are deeply involved. We are compelled never to forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, there are others who have endured and may still be enduring the agonies of pain, deprivation, and internment. And before we end our program today, let's pause and recognize our prisoners of war and our missing in action. Something to remember is that there are still just about 1,500 men and women who are unaccounted for in Vietnam. And we don't want free access to the north part of that country, so we just can't go in, and Korea is even worse. We can't even go in there and account for our dead and give them a proper burial and recognition for their service and the sacrifice of their lives. But we continually try to gain access to those areas where they were lost and were probably interred. I call your attention to this small table off to my right. It occupies the place of dignity and honor, and it is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. We call them POWs and MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families today, so we join together to pay a humble tribute to them and bear witness to their continued absence. The table is set for one. It is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his or her oppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single red rose in the vase signifies the blood they have shed to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. The rose also reminds us of the family and friends who keep the faith while awaiting their return. The yellow ribbon on the vase represents those who demand a final accounting of our comrades who are not among us today. The slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt, when sprinkled on the plate, reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us this day. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors, and into the open arms of a grateful nation. Let us remember them and never forget their sacrifices. May we ever be vigilant of their sacrifices and strive to bring them home. The Code of Conduct, which is sort of a Bible for fighting troops to follow in battle, covers a number of things. But there are two paragraphs which are most significant to me. For our high school students who are in the audience, who I might say, my band director at St. Anne Catholic Elementary School said, look at your band, there are your brilliant mathematical students, John. Because I'll bet if you draw a correlation, you'll find that those musicians are excellent mathematicians as well. But anyway, it's important that the Code of Conduct be remembered that, number one, I am an American. I fight in the forces which guard my way of life. I am prepared to give my life in their defense. And in between, the other paragraphs tell you certain behavioral expectations. And then you wrap it up with the conclusion. And that is, I will never forget that I am an American, responsible for my actions and dedicated to the principles which made my country free. I will trust in my God and the United States of America. So you have the thesis statement and you have the conclusion. Everything in between is sort of mechanical, but those two are very important. I thank you today for being here. My congratulations again to our nominees and to you, ladies and gentlemen, and to Colleen and Dr. Dyson and everyone and Ms. Johnson for all that you've done for education in our county. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. In the words of Representative Dan Lipinski, on the battlefield, the military pledges to leave no soldier behind. As a nation, let it be our pledge that when they return home, we leave no veteran behind. That said, let us unite in our dedication to valuing every veteran, offering support to their families, and preserving the democratic ideals for which they have served and sacrificed. As we conclude our program, we would like to invite our special guests, including our nominees, to come forward for a group photo. Additionally, we encourage everyone to participate in our Cards for Veteran activity. It's in the back of the room there. And take a moment to write a note that will be sent to our veterans, our local veterans in retirement homes. Afterwards, please join us for a brief reception as we honor our nominees. Thank you for being with us today, and this brings our program to a close. If we do not